People like you don't belong here, she smiled, knowing everyone's salary still came with her signature. They told her to move aside like she was blocking the way. Madam, not here. This lounge is for platinum passengers only. Please stand over there with the regular crowd, the man said, his voice slicing through the humid Mumbai air like a blunt knife. He didn't shout, but that faked politeness, that little curl at the corner of his mouth, hurt more than if he'd just yelled, "People like you don't belong here." Ria Deshmukh stood still for a second, hand resting on the strap of her old cotton tote bag, the one her mother had stitched back in their village in Vidarbha. The monsoon clouds were sitting heavy over the city, turning the sky the color of wet cement. Behind the glass wall, the Shakti Platinum Lounge glowed warm and golden. All soft sofas, soft lights, and soft voices. Out here, the air smelled of diesel, sweat, and frying vada pav. Inside, it smelled like money. "I have a ticket for the night elite sleeper," Ria said quietly, her Marathi lilt soft but steady, "and a platinum access pass. Can you please check?" She didn't wave the phone in his face, didn't raise her voice, just held out the screen to him, the QR code pulsing faintly in the dim light of the bus terminal. The man, his name tag said Sanjay Malhotra, lounge manager, took one look at her clothes before he even glanced at the ticket. Plain cotton salwar kameez, a little dust on the hem from some godforsaken warehouse she'd visited that morning. Hair pulled into a low bun. No designer handbag, no watch that screamed foreign brand. He gave a short laugh through his nose. "Platinum, hon," he said, loudly enough for the couple behind her to hear. "These days everyone thinks they are VIP. Show me your ID also. And your app. Properly. Don't try any jugaad here." Ria could feel the eyes on her back, one from the man in the formal shirt clutching his laptop bag a little tighter. Another from the woman adjusting her gold bangles as if the sight of Ria's old tote might stain them. It wasn't new. If you grow up as the truck driver's daughter in a dusty Maharashtra village, you learn early what certain eyes mean. She kept her shoulders straight, even though her kurta was sticking slightly to her skin from the humidity. "Sure," she replied, unlocking the app, showing him the pass again, this time with the small line of text under the QR code that read Founder Access. Sanjay squinted at it, then held the phone up to the overhead light as if dirt would fall off. "Founder Access?" he repeated, mocking the words. "Where are you people learning all this from? Yar? These scammers are getting creative only." He leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to make it look like he was whispering something professional. Just enough for the poison to be private. "Listen, madam, tickets like this are not for," his eyes flicked from her sandals to her tote to her face, "for people who come dressed like they walked straight off an ST bus from some gown. Don't make a scene. Just wait there. I'll verify your card." He pointed toward the area just outside the lounge entrance, where the roof ended and the rain began. The line of water dripping from the edge of the awning looked almost like a curtain meant to separate two worlds. Inside that curtain, air conditioning, cushioned chairs, quiet announcements, people speaking English without thinking. Outside, plastic chairs, chai in small paper cups, kids running around barefoot, and conductors shouting destinations at the top of their lungs. For a second, Ria thought of arguing. She had every right to walk straight inside. The system knew who she was even if Sanjay didn't. But then she remembered her father standing under a broken streetlight with his tiffin in hand, telling her years ago, "There will be people who look at you and only see the mud on your shoes, not the road you walked. Don't waste your breath on every one of them. Choose your moment, beta." So she stepped aside without a word and walked to the edge of the awning. Within seconds, the rain found her. Fat, warm drops landed on her dupatta, soaking into the cotton, darkening the fabric. The couple behind her breezed past Sanjay. He barely glanced at their tickets. "Please come in, sir, ma'am, welcome, welcome," he said, his voice suddenly sweet like overboiled chai. They didn't even hear him, they were too busy talking about their Goa trip. Where to eat seafood, which resort had the better infinity pool. Ria watched them disappear into the glow of the lounge, her jaw tightening just a little. Behind them, a young attendant with a thin braid, the name tag said Lada, hesitated. Eyes flicking from Ria to Sanjay. For a moment it looked like she might say something. Then Sanjay caught her eye. And whatever courage she had died on the spot. She turned away, pretending to refold a stack of paper napkins. Ria shifted her weight from one foot to the other, heels clicking softly on the wet tiles. The night elite bus stood parked a little distance away, its dark blue body gleaming under the sodium lights. Shakti Way Logistics and Travels, painted proudly on the side in bold orange letters. She remembered drawing that logo on cheap chart paper in her hostel room years ago. The idea of having her own fleet of buses nothing more than a late-night fantasy between exams and part-time jobs. Standing there in the half-rain, half-shadow, she almost wanted to laugh. 10 years ago, she would have given anything just to sit in a semi-sleeper seat that didn't smell of stale sweat. Today, she had an entire luxury bus route running under a brand she built from scratch. And yet, to this one man at the lounge door, she was still just some gaon ki ladki with an old bag. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A message from Dev, Ops, reached Nagpur Depot. Loading issues solved. Will call in 10. She typed back quickly, fingers moving on instinct. Good. Checked coolant system on the Salem line too. We can't afford delays this week. For a minute, the work pulled her mind away from the sting in her chest. Numbers, routes, fuel costs, those things always made sense. People's prejudices, on the other hand, followed no logic. Over the noise of the terminal, an older man in a faded shirt bumped into her, almost dropping his steel tiffin. Sorry, Betty, he muttered. Ria grabbed the falling lid before it hit the wet floor and handed it back. He looked at her properly then, eyes crinkling. You're going far? He asked. The way village people do. More out of habit than interest. Bengaluru, she replied. Night bus. He nodded. Good. Always keep moving. City only respects people who keep moving. It was such a small thing. Such an ordinary sentence. But it landed softly where Sanjay's words had cut deep. For a second, she felt less alone. Behind the glass, Sanjay was still, verifying her ticket. Which really meant scrolling half-heartedly through the app and then chatting with another well-dressed passenger at the counter. Every minute that passed, more customers walked in, men in blazers, women in crisp Curtis with matching handbags, college kids with expensive headphones. No one asked them to wait outside. No one held their phones up to the light and asked if their passes were real. The difference was painfully obvious. But the only witnesses were a few staff members who had already learned the first rule of surviving in a place like this. See everything. Say nothing. Ria felt the damp creeping up her sleeves, soaking into the edges of her notebook tucked inside the tote. She thought, not for the first time, that people like Sanjay didn't actually understand the brand they worked under. For them, Shakti was just a logo on their shirt. For her, it was her mother's hands kneading dough at 4 a.m., her father driving night after night on broken highways, her own years sleeping on train seats with a second-hand laptop as a pillow. She kept thinking, if they knew even one chapter of that story, they would never dare speak like this. But of course, they didn't know, and she wasn't going to stand there and give them a TED talk about her life just to be allowed into a room she had paid to build. When Sanjay finally glanced her way again, it wasn't to call her in. It was to wave another suited man past her without checking anything. His tone dripping with respect. Good evening, sir. Your seat is ready. Please enjoy the lounge. We have free Wi-Fi and snacks. The man brushed a few raindrops off his briefcase and walked in. Not even noticing the woman standing just outside. Shoulder slightly wet. Phone still in her hand. Eyes calm but tired. What he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that the girl they were happily ignoring could, with one phone call, change the entire fate of this terminal. But Ria stayed quiet, watching the flow of people, feeling the rain, letting the scene write itself in her memory. Somewhere inside, past the hurt and the anger, a small decision was forming. She wouldn't fight this here with shouting or drama. No, if Shakti Wei had allowed this culture to grow under her nose, then the reckoning had to be bigger than one man at a lounge door. And the right moment to start that reckoning had not come yet. By the time Sanjay finally waved her away with a bored, "We'll check and let you know," the rain had already crept past her shoulders and into the collar of her kurta. Ria took a slow breath, wiped a stray drop from her phone screen, and walked toward the general waiting area. You know that corner every Indian bus terminal has? A few metal benches, a half-broken fan that makes more noise than wind, a chai stall that's been there longer than most employees? That's where she went, not because she belonged there, but because right now, that was the only place nobody was watching her like she was some kind of fraud. She found a spot near a cracked pillar, put her toe down, and opened her laptop. The screen lit up with unread emails, dashboards of routes blinking in different colors, numbers that would terrify half the people sitting around her but, for her, felt strangely comforting. A notification popped. "Ya ma'am. Urgent, refrigerated consignment stuck at Chennai Yard. If delayed, full load spoiled." It was from Kartik, the regional manager she'd promoted last year. Ria pushed aside the sting from the lounge and slipped into the part of herself that nobody here could see, the one that had built Shakti Way from a single second-hand truck to a network of buses and logistics hubs across half the country. She called him, keeping her voice low. "Kartik, tell me clearly, what's happening?" On the other end, she could hear the panic, the honking, the background Tamil announcements. "Ma'am, the local contractor's gone missing. Power backup failing. If the chillers go off we're finished. I tried calling Dev also. He's on the highway." Ria rubbed her forehead with her fingers. "Okay, listen, divert the spare genset from the Kanchipuram depot. I don't care if they complain. We save the load first. We explain later. And message the client personally. Tell him we saw the issue before he did. You'll send me a draft now. I'll rewrite it." Her tone was calm, but there was no space for doubt. The way she spoke, you'd think she was sitting in a glass office in BKC. Not on a rusty bench next to a man snoring with his head on a plastic bag. As she talked, a small boy selling bottled water came near, eyes curious. He looked at her laptop, at the graphs and English words. "Didi, you work for big company?" he asked. She smiled slightly, hand covering the mic. "Something like that," she replied. "You go to school?" He shrugged. "Sometimes, when Baba doesn't need me here." It hit her like a tiny déjà vu. She saw herself, 12 years old, sitting on the front seat of her father's truck, counting toll receipts while he drove through the night. The world never really changed for kids like them. Just the brands and the logos did. "Study whenever you can, hon," she said. "City remembers those who study and those who keep moving." He grinned and ran off, already shouting, "Pani, Thanda Pani," to the next group of passengers. Not far away, at the lounge entrance, Lada had drifted closer again, pretending to wipe the glass door. From that angle she could see Ria, head bent over her laptop, answering calls in a tone that sounded a lot more like a boss giving directions than some random passenger. Every few minutes, Ria's phone lit up with names Lada only saw in company circulars: Dev Deshmukh, Ops. Salem Hub Lead, Legal, Shakti Way. It didn't fit the picture in her head. This woman Sanjay had treated like a nuisance. Lada's fingers tightened around the cleaning cloth. "Sir, maybe her pass is real." She started softly. Before she could finish, Sanjay's eyes snapped to her, sharp as a slap. "Lada, I told you once." "No? You want to do my job or yours," he said under his breath. "If you have so much free time to worry about random ladies, I can ask HR to find someone who focuses better." The warning was clear. In a place where one salary fed a whole family back in the village, "our" was a word that could shut down any sense of justice. Lada swallowed the protest sitting in her throat and nodded. "Yes, sir," she whispered, returning to her stack of napkins and paper cups, hating herself a little for it. On the bench, Ria ended her call and leaned back, letting her eyes close for just a second. In the darkness behind her eyelids, another memory flashed up. her father outside a dhaba near Nashik, taking a sip of too hot chai and blowing on it absently as he told her. One day, when you wear good clothes and walk into big office, they will still see driver's daughter. You don't fight that with shouting. Beta, you fight it with such work that even if they don't like your face, they need your brain. At 18, she had rolled her eyes at him. Baba, I'm not going to some big office. I'll have my own company, she had said, half joking. He'd laughed. Han, Shakti Logistics. No, he'd teased. She'd punched his arm lightly. Today, the name on the bus outside was almost the same, but her father's words felt heavier than ever. A notification chimed with the boarding time for Night Elite, Mumbai to Bengaluru. The app flashed. Gate 3 boarding Platinum and Elite passengers. Ria closed her laptop, slid it back into her tote, and stood up. Her kurta was still damp at the shoulders, but her spine was straight. As she walked toward Gate 3, past the chai stall, past families repacking luggage to avoid extra charges, she could hear the staff voices getting more formal, more polished. Yes sir, your berth is upper. Please this way, ma'am. We'll send your luggage separately. The closer she came to the shining blue bus, the clearer one voice became, sharp, confident, and a little too loud. Please, keep some standard. Nah, the voice said. This is Night Elite, not some local cedar bus. The woman speaking wore a perfectly fitted navy blue uniform, hair in a tight bun, lipstick the exact shade HR training videos preferred. Her badge read Pooja Sethi, chief hostess. She was scanning the crowd the way some people scan a menu, eyes clicking past anyone in simple clothes, stopping only on branded jackets and trolley bags. When Ria stepped into the boarding line, Pooja's gaze hit her like a spotlight. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Then Pooja's face arranged itself into polite suspicion. Yes, madam, she asked, hand already half stretched for a phone. Ticket? Ria held out her e-ticket, the same QR code that Sanjay had treated like a joke. The screen briefly showed, Night Elite, lower berth 4 founder access. Pooja's eyes didn't even reach that part. They had already traveled from the slightly frayed edge of Ria's dupatta to the cheap rubber sole of her sandals. This is for Night Elite sleeper, Pooja said slowly, as if explaining something complicated. You know, full bed, meals, everything, not general bus. You're sure you didn't book the regular coach? Her words were coated in sugar, but you could taste the lemon underneath. A couple of other passengers turned their heads. Curious. Ria kept her voice level. Yes, I know what I booked. You can scan it and see. Pooja took the phone with 2 fingers, like she was handling something suspect. She glanced at the QR code, but instead of scanning it, she looked back up at Ria, tilting her head. Madam, this ticket looks different. We have had cases before. Okay? People doing fraud, making fake screenshots, trying to sneak in to take selfies and show off on Instagram. She gave a short laugh, hoping the nearby passengers would join in. A young guy with wireless earphones smirked. An older woman frowned disapprovingly at Ria, as if she'd already decided the girl must be lying. These berths cost 12,000 rupees one way, Pooja continued, her tone turning slightly harder. It's not some buy on Emmy and chill thing. Okay? People who travel in this section usually don't come with just one cloth bag. For a moment, the words sat in the air between them, heavy and sticky. Ria felt the familiar burn rise in her chest, but she let it pass. The way you let a wave crash without fighting it. I know exactly how much this berth costs, she replied quietly, and I know exactly what this company promises under the name Shakti Way. That last sentence landed differently. A small twitch flickered near Pooja's eye. She didn't like passengers who talked like they owned the brand. That was her world, not theirs. She had spent years polishing her accent, memorizing every line of the customer service script, training junior staff to protect the premium image. The unspoken rule she had absorbed from seniors was simple: keep rich-looking people comfortable, keep poor-looking people out. Unless absolutely necessary, she would never say it so bluntly, even to herself. But the logic sat there, directing her instincts. Still not scanning the code, she stepped slightly aside and spoke into her walkie-talkie. "Security, come to gate 3, she said. "We have one case. Passenger with suspicious ticket insisting on boarding Night Elite. Please come fast before it becomes a scene." Her eyes didn't leave Ria's face. It wasn't just about rules anymore, now it was personal. Something about the way this woman stood there, not begging, not getting flustered, just watching, was irritating. Pooja was used to people either shouting or shrinking. This calm, stubborn middle ground felt like a challenge. A few steps behind, Arav, the baggage handler, paused with a suitcase in his hands. He had been at the company orientation in Nagpur last year, where they'd shown a big photo of our founder and CEO, Ms. Ria Deshmukh. The woman in the photo had been wearing a blazer, hair slightly different, smiling in that formal corporate way. But now, looking at the curve of the jaw, the familiar eyes, he felt his stomach drop. "Ye to madam lag rahi hai," he whispered to himself. For a second, he almost called out, "Ma'am?" Then he saw Sanjay walking over from the lounge side, chest puffed up, clearly ready to back Pooja. Arav's courage shrank back into his chest. He thought of his parents in their small house in Thane, the loan on his sister's nursing course. One wrong word and HR could erase his ID from the system in 2 minutes. He bent down, pretended to adjust a bag strap, and stayed silent, hating himself for it. Ria watched all of this, the glances, the tightening shoulders, the way people subtly moved their own luggage away from her as if poverty could spread by contact. She could feel the insult settling deeper now, not just as a personal wound, but as a pattern. Shakti Way was supposed to be different from the companies she'd seen treat her father like a disposable cog. Yet here she was, at the gate of her own flagship service, being measured by fabric and footwear. "Are you sure," she asked Pooja softly, "that you're representing the true spirit of Shakti Way right now?" It was a simple question, but it hit exactly where it hurt, in that little place where Pooja still wanted to believe she was a professional doing something noble. Not just policing who looked rich enough. Pooja's jaw tightened. That line touched a nerve. "Don't lecture me about this company," she snapped, the mask of politeness cracking just a little. "I have been on this route for 6 years. I know our customers better than you. Security will come, and if your ticket is genuine, fine, you can go, but till then, don't block the way." She stepped forward and, with a small motion of her hand, asked Ria to move aside from the boarding line. Meanwhile, another man in a blazer arrived, flashing his phone. Pooja barely glanced at his screen before smiling. "Welcome, sir. Berth 3, you can board." He brushed past Ria without a second look, the scent of his cologne mixing with the damp smell of the terminal. Standing there, slightly off to the side, Ria felt the humiliation pile up, outside the lounge. Now at the gate, but beneath it, somewhere quieter, something else was growing, a cold, clear line of thought. If this is how they treat a stranger on the most expensive route, she thought, how many of my father's friends, how many village kids like that water boy, have already been told silently, "You don't look like you belong here." She could feel a part of her, the old Ria who used to fight conductors over 2 rupees, wanting to shout, "Scan the code, you idiot, I own this bus." But the newer part of her, the one that had sat in boardrooms with investors and negotiated with union leaders, held her back. Not yet. Let them show their full face. Let them make the mistake complete. Then we'll see who gets to board what. Pooja kept glancing toward the security desk like a teacher waiting for the principal to back her up. The line moved around Ria, people stepping past her as if she were a pole in the middle of the platform. A couple of younger guys gave each other that look, the one that says, "Kalo, drama ho raha hai, free entertainment." Someone pulled out their phone, half ready to record in case things got spicy. For a few seconds, the whole gateway to Night Elite turned into a little stage, and Ria was the unwanted actor everyone expected to be thrown out. "Madam, I'm asking you nicely," Pooja said, folding her arms now. The polite mask was almost gone. Please leave the boarding area. You can go to counter and sort out your ticket. Don't stand here and waste my time. People actually paying for these berths need to board. The word, actually, landed like a slap. Sanjay had reached by then. Umbrella still dripping, hair slightly wet, but ego completely dry. What's going on here? He demanded, already looking at Ria like he knew the answer. Pooja shot him a triumphant glance. Same lady from the lounge. Fake-looking platinum pass. Now fake-looking ticket. I've asked security to come. Ria looked from one to the other. Her patience stretched thin but not broken. This is the third time, she said, voice calm in a way that made a few people lean closer. I'm telling you again, scan the ticket or check the passenger list. This is the last time I'm asking politely. Sanjay snorted. Uri wah, attitude be high, he muttered. You think threatening us will work? We deal with people like you every week. Some influencer wants to show Instagram. Some free traveler wants luxury cheap. We are not fools. He turned slightly, addressing the onlookers as if they were his jury. You all also know, right? Nowadays anyone can fake screenshot. That's why we must protect brand. Otherwise tomorrow you will say Shakti Way has no standards. A murmur of half agreement, half discomfort went through the crowd. It's always easier to side with the uniform than with one woman standing alone with a cotton bag. The older lady who had frowned earlier shook her head, whispering, people want everything without paying these days. The young guy with earphones smirked again, clearly enjoying the humiliation. Only one person moved differently, Arav. His heart was pounding so loudly he couldn't hear the rest of Sanjay's speech. The image of that training slide in Nagpur, our founder, Ms. Ria Deshmukh, would not leave his mind. He glanced at her again, now looking not just at her clothes but at the set of her jaw. The way she didn't hunch even when half the terminal was looking. It was her. It had to be. His throat felt dry. If I say nothing today, he thought, then I'm worse than them. Before his courage could evaporate again, he straightened up and walked a couple of steps closer. Sir, he began, voice shaky. Sanjay turned, irritated. What? Arav swallowed. Sir, maybe, just scan once? Her code looks like that special type we saw in training. For a moment, Ria's eyes met his, and in them he saw something he would never forget, not pleading. Not command, just a quiet, I see you. It gave him enough strength to finish the sentence. If we are wrong, we can always refuse later. But if we are wrong in this direction, his voice trailed off. Pooja rolled her eyes. Uri, now baggage boys will teach me my work also, she snapped. Arav, you handle bags, I handle passengers. Simple. Her tone made it sound like he had tried to break into the cockpit. And anyway, if her code was that special, I would know. I've been on this route since before you joined. Okay? I've served real founders, real CEOs. They don't come dressed like this and argue at the gate. That last line, real founders, dug itself into Ria's chest. For the first time that evening, her fingers tightened around her phone. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, almost louder than the rain in announcements. She took one small step closer, just enough to lower her voice without losing any force. Are you absolutely sure, she asked, looking straight at Pooja first, then Sanjay, that you want to continue like this without checking anything? Because once I make the call I'm about to make, there won't be a rewind button. Not for either of you. Her tone wasn't dramatic, but it carried something everyone understood instinctively, the sound of a line being drawn. Pooja laughed, a little too loudly. Oh ho, now phone call threat also, she said, throwing a quick look at the other passengers as if saying, see this? You call whoever you want. Madam, call Prime Minister also. Rules are rules. Security is almost here only. Sanjay smiled in that dry way of his. If your ticket is real, nothing will happen. If it's fake, you should say thank you, we are giving you chance to walk away. To him, it was simple. Power was on his side. Gate passes, walkie-talkies, his closeness to the regional manager, all of that had made him believe nobody could check him. Ria felt something inside her settle. The way dust settles after a heavy truck passes. The time for giving chances was over. She unlocked her phone, found a contact marked Dev by, and pressed call. When he answered on the second ring, she didn't bother with small talk. Dev, I'm at Mumbai Terminal, Gate 3, she said, her voice still low but stripped of all softness now. We have a serious problem. Our staff at the Platinum Lounge and Night Elite Gate are denying boarding to a confirmed passenger on grounds of appearance. Making public comments about who looks rich enough for our service. And refusing to verify tickets even after multiple requests. I want internal security, and legal here within the hour. And I want every camera pointed at this gate pulled for the last 45 minutes. On the other end, Dev went pin drop silent. He had heard many versions of, "We need to talk," from his sister. But this tone, this was different. "You're okay?" he asked first. On instinct. Physically. Yes, she replied. Trust wise. No. And Dev, don't come alone. Bring people who can make decisions on the spot. This isn't a small slap on the wrist case. This is rot. And it's sitting right at our front door. There was a pause. Then Dev's voice came back. Steel under velvet. Done. I'm turning around now. 35 minutes. Maximum. Until then, don't let them push you out of the terminal. She almost smiled at that. Don't worry, she said. They're too busy guarding the bus from me. She cut the call and slipped the phone into her bag. Around her, people had gone very quiet without even realizing it. The words, internal security, HR and legal, have a funny effect in any Indian workplace. They carry the smell of real trouble. Pooja's eyebrows had twitched upward when she heard Dev, but her pride refused to back down. Dekha, she said quickly to Sanjay, trying to reclaim control. She thinks if she uses big English words, we'll get scared. Internal this, legal that. Let's see what security says first. Sanjay nodded, but the corner of his mouth was no longer smiling. 15 minutes later, things stopped feeling like some minor gate drama. The sound of engines from the entrance side changed. Everyone who has spent time in Indian cities knows the difference. Regular cabs have one kind of rumble. Official SUVs have another. Through the glass, you could see them pulling in, two black vehicles with the Shakti Way logo. One white SUV with a small red beacon turned off but still unmistakable. A few junior staff standing near the metal detector nudged each other. Ari, Dev Sir A Gaya Lagta Hai. One whispered, HR Whale B Soth Hain. The news traveled the way gossip always does, faster than any announcement system. In less than a minute, Dev was walking through the terminal, reins still clinging to his shoulders, flanked by the head of a legal advisor, and two members of the internal security team with ID badges hanging heavy on their chests. He didn't stop to greet anyone, didn't smile at the front desk. His eyes went straight to Gate 3, to the small knot of people, and then to his sister standing just outside the boarding line. For a second, all the CEO and COO labels fell away. Ria, he called, voice softening despite the anger in his eyes. Kya wa? Pooja and Sanjay froze. Whatever story they had been rehearsing in their heads about unruly passenger and possible fraud evaporated the moment they saw where Dev walked. He didn't go to them. He went straight to Ria, and not with the "Sir, can I help" formality of a manager. He stopped in front of her like any younger brother would, checking her face first, not the situation. You're really okay? He asked quietly. She nodded once. I'm fine, she said, but your company isn't. The HR head, a woman in her 40s with calm eyes, stepped forward, already taking in Sanjay's stiff posture, Pooja's clenched jaw, Ariv's guilty expression, Lata's trembling hands in the distance. Ms. Deshmukh, do you want to brief us here? She asked formally, but there was a flicker of something like respect in her tone. This was the moment when the invisible truth that only a few people knew was about to become public reality. Ria turned slightly, not climbing onto any chair, not raising her hands for attention, but somehow making the entire gate area feel like a meeting room. Since you all like clarity so much, she began, eyes moving from Pooja to Sanjay and then sweeping the circle of staff and passengers. Let me be very clear too. My name is Riya Deshmukh. I am the founder and CEO of Shakti Way Logistics and Travels. And for the last 1 hour, your staff has treated me exactly the way they treat anyone who doesn't look rich enough to belong here. The words did not need volume, they carried their own weight. You could almost feel the air being sucked out of the space. The young guy with earphones pulled them out without realizing it. The older lady's hand flew to her mouth. Someone at the back actually said, "Aree bop ree," under his breath. Sanjay's face went from brown to gray in seconds. He opened his mouth like a fish, then closed it again. No words coming. Pooja's fingers spasmed around the boarding scanner. For the first time since she had started her shift, she didn't know where to look. Every line she had just delivered about real founders and 12,000 rupees echoed in her head now, but with a cruel twist. Arav felt his knees go weak with a mix of horror and relief. Horror, because he had almost stayed silent. Relief, because at least he had tried to say something. Lata, standing near the lounge door, felt tears prick her eyes. Not for herself, but for that small girl inside her who had always believed that maybe, somewhere, the person at the top would understand this feeling of being looked down upon. And here she was, in cotton clothes, getting soaked in the same rain. Dev cleared his throat, his anger now very controlled, the way only someone used to boardrooms can manage. "All right," he said, voice cutting neatly through the shocked murmurs. "From this moment, Gate 3 is closed for boarding until we finish this. No one gets on that bus without my clearance. Sanjay, Pooja, internal security will speak with you first. Cameras for this gate and the Platinum Lounge will be pulled. Passengers, we apologize for the delay, you will hear an announcement soon." He glanced at Riya. "We'll take this conversation to the bus itself," he said softly. "You started Shakti Way so people like Baba wouldn't be humiliated on the road. We're not going to let the same thing happen under our own name." As they walked toward the steps of the night elite, with Riya and Dev at the front and our legal and internal security behind them, the mood had shifted completely. 15 minutes ago, people had looked at Riya like she was an annoyance trying to sneak into luxury. Now they moved back instinctively to let her pass. Some with shame, some with a quiet, almost guilty admiration. One man even muttered, "Respect, madam," under his breath. The water boy from earlier watched her go, eyes wide, and whispered to himself, "Baba was right. City remembers those who keep moving." He didn't know it, but that one line, that ordinary little sentence, was exactly the kind of future Riya was about to fight for in the next few hours, not just for herself, but for every person who had ever been told, "You don't look like you belong here," on a road they helped build. Inside the night elite bus, the lights were turned up brighter than usual. The berths were empty, curtains pulled back, the whole space feeling less like a luxury coach and more like a makeshift courtroom. Riya sat at the little conference table near the front, the one they usually used for route briefings and client demos. Dev stood slightly to her right. On the opposite side, Sanjay and Pooja sat next to each other, both still in uniform but suddenly looking very small in those navy blues. The HR head opened her laptop. Internal security pulled out a tablet. And for a moment nobody spoke. You could hear the rain drumming faintly on the bus roof, the way it used to drum on the metal cabin of her father's truck. Riya took that in, let the sound steady her. "Let's start simple," she said finally, her voice soft but leaving no space for argument. "Show me exactly what happened from the time I reached the lounge door." The internal security guy nodded and tapped the tablet. The first clip came up. Riya walking toward the glowing Platinum Lounge sign, toad on her shoulder. Sanjay looking up, frowning before she'd even reached the counter. They all watched in silence as he took her phone, held it up to the light like a fake note, smirked, pointed her out into the rain. No matter how many excuses you prepare in your head, video has a cruel way of telling the truth. Sanjay's shoulders stiffened. He tried not to react, but the sound of his own voice saying, This place is not for people who come like that. Made his stomach lurch. At the time, it had felt normal. Like he was doing his job. Protecting the vibe. Now, in front of the woman whose name was printed on every bus and poster. It sounded exactly like what it was. Prejudice dressed up as professionalism. The video jumped ahead. The gate to Night Elite. Pooja's bright fake smile melting the second she saw Rhea. Her fingers deliberately not scanning the ticket. The way she called security on the walkie-talkie before doing the one basic step in her job. Her lines rang out clear in the bus. Real founders don't come dressed like this. 12,000 rupees. Madam, not some normal bus. People like this want luxury photos for free. Each sentence landed heavier than the last. Pooja stared at the table. Cheeks burning. In her head, she was already arguing. I was just protecting the brand. Just avoiding fraud. But even to herself, it sounded weak now. The tablet kept playing. Arav's attempt to suggest scanning once. Lada hovering near the lounge door. Swallowing her words. The way the staff had laughed nervously instead of stopping anything. Then finally, Rhea lifting her phone. Making that call to Dev with that one calm sentence. Our staff are denying a confirmed passenger on grounds of appearance. Nobody in the bus moved while the footage finished. When the screen went dark, Rhea didn't speak for a few seconds. She just looked at them, one by one. If this is how you treat the person who built this company, she said quietly, I can only imagine how you treat the people it was built for. Sanjay opened his mouth first. Words tumbling out. Ma'am, I only meant to follow procedure. We have so many fraud cases. And these days people from small towns also try to. He stopped himself too late. It was out there. People from small towns. The HR head raised an eyebrow. Dev let out a slow breath like he was holding back something sharper. Rhea tilted her head. These days people from small towns also try to, what? Sanjay? She asked. Try to sit on a soft sofa? Try to drink chai from a proper cup? Try to be treated like human beings? Her tone never went high. But it cut through his excuses better than any shouting. Pooja found her voice next. Clinging to the only shield she had. Ma'am, I was only thinking of safety. She said, hands twisting together. We have had incidents. People sneaking in, taking videos, spoiling experience for genuine customers. I thought, if I allow one wrong person, others will complain. I didn't realize. She trailed off. Because what she didn't want to admit even to herself was that she had real customer coded in her mind as a certain type, branded luggage, certain accent, certain perfume, never cotton kurta and a village-made bag. Rhea watched her for a moment. Does your safety checklist have any line that says, judge by accent? Shoes. And how expensive the bag looks, she asked. Show me. Maybe I missed that slide in the training. Pooja's lips trembled. No, ma'am, she whispered. So whose criteria were you following? Rhea pressed gently. Companies, or your own? Pooja couldn't answer. The bus felt even smaller now. Then Rhea turned, and for the first time that night, her gaze softened a little. Arav, she said, you tried to speak. No? Arav jolted, not used to being addressed in these meetings. Ma'am, I just thought maybe scan once. He said, shame and relief mixing. But when Madam scolded, I got scared. Job? He shrugged helplessly. In that one unfinished sentence, Rhea heard a whole generation of workers. People who knew something was wrong but had mortgages. Sisters' weddings. Hospital bills in the back of their minds. She nodded slowly. Fear I understand, she said. Silence. I don't like. But trying at least once? I remember that. Then she looked toward the door where Lada was half hidden, unsure if she was allowed inside. Lada, come. The younger woman stepped forward, eyes already wet. Ma'am, I saw what happened, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to say something. But Sanjay sir, I'm the first salaried person in my family. If I lose this job, my sister's college stops. So I kept quiet. I'm very ashamed. The words tumbled out with that particular raw honesty you only hear from someone who doesn't know how to make their guilt sound pretty. Ria let their confessions hang in the air for a moment. Then she straightened her back and spoke in that clipped, final way people in corporate India recognize instantly. Okay, decisions, she said. Not for next week, not after some long email chain. Right now. She turned to the HR head. Effective immediately. Sanjay Malhotra and Pooja Sethi are terminated from Shakti Way. She said. Their badges will be deactivated today. They will be escorted to collect their personal items under supervision. Their behavior was not a small mistake. It was repeated, deliberate humiliation of a paying passenger based on appearance and background. There is no place for that here. Not in my company. Not under my name. Sanjay's face went slack. For years, he'd thought his closeness to regional managers, his habit of keeping VIPs happy, would protect him from anything. In 30 seconds, that illusion shattered. Pooja's eyes filled with tears. A part of her wanted to beg, to say she'd change, but she could see in Ria's face that begging was not the currency accepted here. Not today. Then Ria did something that surprised even Dev. She didn't stop at the obvious villains. She looked at the shift supervisor, at the senior security guard who had been hovering by the gate earlier and somehow never stepped in. And you, she said, not unkindly but very directly. You saw everything and did nothing. You may not have insulted me, but your silence joined their side. From tonight, you are all suspended for 1 week with pay while HR reviews your conduct and your suitability for frontline roles. You will attend the first batch of our new ethics and bias training whether you stay in this job or not. If you come back to this terminal, you come back as different people. Otherwise you don't come back at all. The men nodded stiffly, faces red. It's a special kind of sting when someone points out that you weren't cruel. You were just cowardly. Sometimes that hurts more. Dev took over to lay out the structural part, the way only a COO can. From tomorrow, he said, every Shakti Way terminal will have one anonymous hotline number displayed clearly, for staff and for passengers. Any case of bias, humiliation, or unfair treatment can be reported there directly to HR and internal security. No more, I didn't know. No more, I was just following orders. We will also roll out mandatory training on unconscious bias and class prejudice. Starting with Mumbai, he glanced at Ria, then added something that wasn't in any policy document. And let me be very clear. Promotions and bonuses will not only depend on revenue and punctuality anymore. They will depend on how you treat the people who pay us. Whether they come in blazer or in simple cotton sari. Ria nodded once and turned back to Lata and Arav. I can't undo what you saw today, she told them, but I can decide what you do with it now. She looked at Lata. From next month, you will not be standing outside folding napkins. We are creating a new role, customer experience lead for this terminal. Someone whose job is not to impress rich people, but to make sure everyone is treated with basic respect. If you want it, it's yours. You remember very well what it feels like to be small in a big system. I need that memory in charge here. Lata's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilling over openly now. She nodded quickly, unable to form words. Then Ria faced Arav. And you, she said, you will go to Nagpur for 2 weeks to help train new recruits what you saw today and what you felt. Not to show them my video. To show them your hesitation. So they don't repeat it. After that, we'll bring you back as part of the training team. People listen more when the story comes from someone like them, not from some fancy consultant. Somewhere in the middle of all this, the shock in the bus had slowly turned into something else, a strange mix of fear, respect, and, for a few, a quiet kind of pride. Not pride in what had happened, but in the fact that, for once, someone at the very top was not just talking about values in a glossy brochure but actually firing, suspending, promoting in real time based on those values. As the meeting wrapped up, Dev looked at the watch he and Ria had once bought together from a cheap stall to celebrate their first hired truck. We're already delayed, he said, half to himself. But maybe tonight, being late is the right thing. Ria gave a tired, small smile. If we are 5 hours late but we fix this, she said, it's still on time. Outside, the terminal announcements restarted. Staff shuffled back to their posts. Passengers prepared to board again. But nothing was quite the same. The air felt different, like a room that had just had all its windows opened after years. And somewhere in the back of Ria's mind, a new picture was forming, not just of this one bus, this one night, but of town halls, training rooms, and difficult conversations still to come. Tonight, she had cut out 2 visible tumors. Tomorrow, she knew, the real surgery would begin, changing a whole culture that had quietly decided, for far too long, who looked like they belonged and who didn't. In the weeks after that night, the story didn't stay inside the bus or the Mumbai terminal. You know how things spread in India. First it was a blurry WhatsApp forward. Then a local Marathi newspaper did a short piece. Woman mistaken for low-class passenger turns out to be founder of major travel firm. By the time a business magazine picked it up with the headline, when the CEO wasn't allowed on her own bus, the incident had turned into something bigger than Ria, bigger than Shakti Way. At first, she honestly hated it. Every interview request wanted the same dramatic angle. How did it feel when they made you stand in the rain? She was tired of talking about the rain. But then she started noticing something else. After the article went out, drivers from old days messaged her, "Madam, now they'll think twice before shouting at people like us." A young girl from Jalgaon wrote on Instagram, "I also feel small in big city. Seeing you stand there in cotton clothes but still with so much power, gave me courage." That's when Ria stopped seeing it as viral drama, and started seeing it as a tool. Inside Shakti Way, the cultural overhaul she and Dev had promised wasn't just a PowerPoint they forgot after 3 months. Training rooms in Nagpur, Chennai, Lucknow filled up with staff who were used to thinking of bias as something big cities talk about on TV. Now, they were watching the exact footage from Gate 3 in the lounge. Pausing on every look, every shrug, every silence. In one session, a cleaner in Surat raised his hand and said, "Madam, I realized, many times I also judge people by how they dress. I thought only rich people deserve patience. Today I feel ashamed, it wasn't glamorous. These sessions, lots of awkwardness, some resistance, a few eye rolls from senior staff who thought this was all overreaction. But slowly, stories started coming back that made Ria sure it was working. A conductor from Pune wrote in, "Today one old villager came with crumpled ticket. Everyone was laughing at him. My staff stopped them and said, 'At Shakti Way we don't do that anymore.' I felt proud." Lata, now in her new role as customer experience lead, sat in on many of these trainings, sharing her side, how it felt to stay quiet out of fear. How it felt when someone in power finally used their power to protect, not to crush. People listened to her in a way they'd never listened to any HR memo. And then there was Pooja. For a long time after her termination, she avoided all news about Shakti Way. Her first instinct, like many of us when we're caught doing something ugly, was to defend herself in her own head. "I was just doing my job. Anyone would do the same. It's not that big a deal." But Mumbai has a way of holding up a mirror whether you like it or not. One evening on a crowded local train, she overheard 2 women talking about the incident. They weren't discussing Ria's power or the drama. They were talking about their own daily humiliations, bank clerks who talk down to them, shop staff who ignore them, tech guys who explain everything like they're stupid. "If someone like her can be treated like that," one woman said, "what chance do we have?" That line stuck in Pooja's mind like a stone in a slipper. Over the next months, she replayed that night again and again, this time without the ego. Slowly, the picture changed. She stopped seeing herself as the protector of brand, and started seeing what Ria had seen from the beginning, a woman who had used her small bit of power like a stick, hitting downwards because it made her feel taller. One day, Pooja did something she never imagined she would do. She wrote an email, not a long, flowery one, just simple words in slightly awkward English. She wrote about coming from a middle-class family where everyone worshipped the idea of standard, where darker skin and cheap clothes were always joked about at family functions, Where, don't mix with that type, was normal advice. She wrote, I thought I was being professional. But I was just repeating my own prejudice in uniform. I made you stand outside your own lounge. I am deeply ashamed. I am sorry. She hit send to an address she found on the Shakti Way website and honestly expected nothing. 2 weeks later, Our called her. Ms. Deshmukh read your email. They said, she has one question. Would you be willing to share your story in our internal trainings? So others don't become another version of you? Pooja was stunned. I thought she would never want to see my face again. She told the HR manager. Maybe she doesn't, the manager replied honestly, but she believes change is more powerful than punishment alone. So Pooja started standing in front of rooms where she once sat in the back and told the ugly, uncomfortable truth. How easy it is to become Sanjay or Pooja in small ways without noticing. Staff didn't clap loudly for her. Some judged her, but some walked out of those rooms thinking, I have also spoken like that. I need to stop. That was enough. About 6 months after the incident, on a cool evening in Vidarbha, the Deshmukh family's old courtyard was full of plastic chairs and fairy lights. It was Ria's father's 70th birthday. Neighbors wandered in with steel plates of laddus. Kids ran between people's legs. Someone's uncle was arguing loudly about cricket near the hand pump, parked just outside the small house. Almost comically large for the narrow lane, was one shining Shakti Way coach on a special visit, its logo reflecting the yellow bulbs strung overhead. At one point, someone tapped a spoon on a glass and shouted, Arey, William Sahab speech dega. They all still called her father, Driver Saab, or William Bow, even though he hadn't driven long routes in years. He stood up slowly, knee cracking a bit, but eyes bright. He looked at his daughter for a long moment before speaking. When Ria was small, he began, she would sit in my truck and ask me why the dhaba owners talked differently to men in cars than to me. I used to tell her, they see engine and paint first, not the person. That day at Mumbai terminal, they did the same thing to her. They saw cotton kurta, old bag, and they forgot to see human being. Many people told me, your daughter is very powerful now. She fired them, wah wah, but I am proud of something else. He paused, letting his words settle over the courtyard. She did not use that power just to take revenge for herself. She used it to change how a whole company treats people like us. People from villages, drive as children, anyone who doesn't look rich. Power without purpose is just privilege. Power with purpose. He smiled, eyes shining. That, beta, is Shakti, real Shakti. Later that night, when most guests had left and the fairy lights were still glowing dimly, Ria stepped outside alone, leaned against the side of the parked bus, and looked up at the sky she'd grown up under. The humiliation at the lounge and the gate hadn't magically disappeared from her memory. It still stung when she thought about standing in the rain, about that word, real founder, thrown at her like an insult. But now those moments sat inside a bigger story, a story of hotlines and trainings and small acts of courage, of a baggage handler who found his voice, a junior staff who used her promotion to protect others, and even a former hostess learning to rebuild herself in front of the very people she once hurt. She realized something that night that might be worth you thinking about too. Sometimes the most painful things that happen to you are also the clearest mirrors of what needs to change around you. The question is not just, will I survive this, but, what will I do with it if I do? So if you're listening to this and remembering a time you were made to feel small, at work, in a shop, in your own family, maybe ask yourself, in that moment, did you become like Sanjay, like Pooja, like the silent supervisor, or like Arav and Lada, who at least tried to turn fear into courage? And the next time you see someone else being pushed to the side because they don't look the part, what role will you choose? In the end, that's the real legacy of people like Ria, not just the buses, not just the company, but the quiet, stubborn idea that dignity is not a luxury seat you have to earn. It's the basic ticket every human being should get, no matter what they are wearing when they walk up to the gate. In the end, Ria's story is not really about a rich company or a luxury bus. It is about what happens when we stop protecting our ego and start protecting each other's dignity. Many of us in India grow up hearing, "Chup raho, log kya kahinge," and we learn to swallow anger, grief, even injustice, just to keep the peace. But this story reminds us that silent suffering is not peace. It is a slow poison. A manager's prejudice at a lounge. A hostess's cutting words at a gate. A supervisor's quiet looking away. All of it shows how dangerous it is when we care more about standard than about basic respect. At the same time, it also shows another truth. True gold fears no fire. When one person dares to speak, to stay, to act with integrity, the circle begins to change. Ria does not use her power only to take revenge. She chooses the harder path, to clean the system, to hold people accountable, and yet still leave a door open for real remorse and growth. For us as adults, especially in our later years, this is a gentle invitation to look in the mirror, in the stories of our own life. Have we been Ria, or Sanjay, or the silent supervisor, or the Arav who tried to speak but was afraid? You reap what you sow applies not only to money and status, but also to how we treat those who seem less than us. I would love to hear your reflections. Which part of this story touched you? And have you ever faced or witnessed something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments. Press like if this story made you think. And subscribe to the channel if you want more dramatic yet deeply reflective stories like this. Until the next video, may you find a little more courage, a little more kindness, and a quiet sense of peace, even in the middle of life's noise.